It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Ray White, the largest real estate and property group in Australasia.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast, available on iHeartRadio and also Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. And welcome to your Tuesday, June the 14th for 2022. Coming up in just a moment, we've got that second part of the PropTrak report with economist Angus Moore. And yes, we're looking at the May numbers around the country. Also looking at New Zealand's time tunnel of looking into the future of what might happen here in Australia. In New Zealand, the slowdown in the property market is seeing fewer homes go under the hammer. Figures from realestate.co.nz show auction listings had fallen by more than a third than a year ago, while listings with displayed prices had jumped by close to a quarter. Recent reports from CoreLogic and Quotable Values have shown that house prices are coming under pressure from rising interest rates, tighter lending criteria, and a shift in buying behaviour from fear of missing out to fear of overpaying. And there was 77% more properties on the market in May this year in New Zealand compared with last. And the higher premium properties there were also coming off the boil as the downturn takes hold, with local investment bank Jardine's forecasting that the average house price would fall 18% by the end of 2023. So that is coming out of New Zealand this morning, remembering that they are ahead of time with what is happening here in Australia.
It's the Main Centre forecast with propertybuyer.com.au.
And let's have a look at your weather around Australia on this Tuesday morning. First, we go to Sydney, expecting a mainly fine Monday, a high of 15 degrees. In Melbourne, some good news. You're up 1 to 14 degrees today, mainly dry and cloudy skies. So the rain has disappeared, fingers crossed, for today. Brisbane, a possible shower, which means probably long dry periods and a high of 21 degrees. And in Perth, make sure you grab the raincoat and the brolly, expecting showers again today and your high of 19 degrees.
Informing you on real estate. Wake up every morning to the Real Estate Podcast.
I see in Melbourne on this day, way back in 1964, drummer Ringo Starr reunites with the Beatles on stage after recovering from tonsillitis. Also on this day in 2002, I don't remember this happening, a large asteroid just misses hitting Earth. A 73-metre asteroid was 3 times closer to Earth than the Moon was, and it was first discovered 3 days after its closest approach. Probably all over if that makes contact. We won't be sitting around talking about real estate then, will we? And if you're celebrating a birthday today, well, Boy George from Culture Club is celebrating his birthday. Come a Chameleon. Who can forget that song? He is turning 61 years old.
Across every state, city and town of Australia, the Real Estate Podcast.
And let's continue with PropTrak. They released this report for May, which is very comprehensive. Yesterday we were talking to PropTrak economist Angus Moore to break down some of the numbers, and he is back again. Good morning, Angus.
Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
No worries. And I think we're up to Queensland to have a look at some of the listings in Brisbane, which were up 5.8% month on month after a quieter April. So what are the numbers, Angus, from your report for Queensland?
Brisbane's been one of the most interesting, and Southeast Queensland broadly, but one of the most interesting property markets for the past couple of years, because we've seen just red hot demand for people moving up from Sydney and Melbourne in particular to Southeast Queensland. And what that's meant is there's been strong demand and relatively little supply available, because when it comes up, it's getting kind of snapped up. And we're starting to see a bit more coming to market. So as you said, we saw more new listings in Brisbane in May than we did in April. In part, that's because April was quiet with the public holidays. But even compared to last year, the number of new listings in Brisbane was up 8%, 8.5% compared to the same time in 2021. So that's going to start being good news for buyers. They are starting to see a bit more stock coming to market, but even so, the number of properties listed, number of active properties, is still below even where it was a year ago. It's down sort of 12% in Brisbane compared to where it was a year ago, which is showing just how quickly stuff's getting picked up. And even with those new listings, it's kind of not enough to boost the stock of properties available to buyers.
And Adelaide's housing market bounced back from a quiet April as well, with new listings surging 18.5% month on month. Were you surprised by that surge, and what else with the numbers in South Australia were happening?
Yeah, so I said Brisbane was one of the most interesting, I think, and I'm a little parochial here because I grew up in Adelaide. I think Adelaide's one of the most interesting this year. So prices in Adelaide are actually still continuing to grow. They're up 0.6% in May, and that's against prices nationally falling by 0.1%. So Adelaide is really outperforming the rest of the nation at the moment. We did see a lot of new stock come to market in Adelaide in May. So we saw 18% more new listings than we did in April. Again, partly that's public holidays in April, but even when we look compared to the same time last year in Adelaide, listings are up more than 13%. So that's helping give buyers a bit more choice and will, start to cool some of the competition in the market. But much like in Brisbane, the total stock available in Adelaide is well down compared to pre-pandemic, and it is pretty competitive for buyers.
Let's have a look at the Perth housing market, because once again it has rebounded from a quieter April, with new listings surging 14.5% month on month, and it was the busiest first quarter, I noted, for new listings since 2015. So tell us a little bit more about the story behind Perth's surge.
Yeah, we've certainly seen a busy start to the year in Perth, as we have in other capital cities. But, Perth has been quite busy. So the first quarter was very busy. April was a little quieter, as it was kind of right around the country with the public holidays. But again, surging through in May, keeping that pace of activity reasonably strong. And if we're looking at sales activity in Perth, it's remaining pretty solid, even with the sort of headwinds from interest rates. So Perth remains up. New listings are up 7.5% compared to where they were last year. So again, much like other cities, quite a busy May.
And in Tasmania, what's happening there? I see that new listings in Hobart are up strongly compared with last year, giving buyers more choice.
Turnaround in Tasmania has been pretty remarkable in the last few months, actually. So Tasmania was the fastest growing capital city in terms of prices over the course of the pandemic, outperforming even Brisbane. And we actually saw prices in Hobart fall last month, while they're still growing in Brisbane. And the stock available in Tasmania has really shot up. So after being incredibly tight and buyers facing very little choice through much of the pandemic, we're now seeing new listings surge. They're up, more than 40% in May this year compared to May last year. And that means the stock on market is up more than a third compared to the same time last year. And it's actually up more than 2/3 compared to the kind of trough we saw in July last year. So there's been a real pickup in stock available in Tassie, and that's giving buyers a lot more choice and will make the market less competitive after 2 red hot years.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating for Tasmania. Northern Territory, let's have a look there, because new listings in Darwin bounced back as well from a quieter April, up 21.5% month on month.
Yeah, that's right. Strong month in the Northern Territory, both in Darwin and regional NT. We saw listings up in Darwin up 21% compared to April, and up 31% in regional Northern Territory. So again, quite a busy month, at least compared to April, which again was affected by public holidays. If we're looking compared to last year, a bit flatter. So Darwin was 3% up compared to the same time last year, which broadly speaking flat. Northern Territory was down about a fifth. Regional Northern Territory is quite a small market, so it can be really volatile month to month. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but maybe some signs of a little bit of tightness in terms of supply there.
I'm just thinking about your next report is going to be so interesting, isn't it, in terms of where we are right now, because there's going to be another cash rate rise. So, boy, the numbers will start to move around quite significantly, perhaps.
it's going to be really interesting to see how the dynamic plays out this year between kind of cooling off buyer demand as the cash rate increases and reduces how much people are able to borrow, and that kind of tamps down on some of the market sentiment, coupled with the fact that we have seen a really strong start to the year on the activity side of the market. We've seen quite a quick pace of sales. We've seen a lot of new listings through the first quarter, and winter is normally a little bit quieter for market activity, so we would expect to see June, July be a little quieter. But it'll be interesting to see, once we pick back up into spring, will we keep the sort of pace we did last year when we had an incredibly busy spring?
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much once again, Angus, for giving us that report breakdown. And all eyes will be on the next couple of months for sure.
Certainly will be, and very much so on the Reserve Bank. I do not envy them their task. Thanks very much for having me again.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.